Well, is it a big one?
It is after 7 o'clock, and so if we could get started with this meeting, we apologize for being late, but we'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. I am in a new role tonight, so y'all are just gonna have to bear with me just a little bit because I'm learning how to do things a little differently. First thing I will do is read the public charge. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves with the same courtesy toward both school personnel and each other. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting, and the board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain that they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruptions of this meeting. At this time, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we will take a moment of silence to remember those that you would like to remember and think about. Thank you very much. At this time, we will have recognitions with Dr. Felder.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Purcell, and good evening, everyone. Good evening to Chair Atherton, who I believe is joining us virtually, to the entire board, to all of our students, staff, families, and community members. This evening, we start off with some special recognitions. So on Monday, January 16th, residents of Hillsborough and Northern Orange County will hold their annual celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s powerful and enduring legacy. On the 16th, Americans everywhere will observe a holiday to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. I hope we all remember to pause and reflect upon the message delivered years ago in this Peaceful Leaders I Have a Dream speech. I hope we will allow it to resonate within and let it prompt us to lead with kindness and be inclusive and fair with every human being whose life we encounter. We want you to know that Orange County schools will be well represented in a drive-through parade celebration with a bright and shiny Orange County school bus. The event starts at 9 a.m. and all OCS schools and buildings will be closed, want to make note of that, to the public on that day in honor of this great civil rights leader. At this time, would our staff from the technology department please stand and come forward? And while they're doing that, I would like to say that tonight we want to acknowledge the work this team does throughout the district, practically non-stop. And I repeat, non-stop. And that is before, during, and following the demands of the global pandemic. The people standing here for recognition and who are pictured on this slide work tirelessly, and I must say, patiently beyond understanding, especially when they're responding to calls from me. And they respond to all sorts of technical difficulties and emergencies ranging from widespread power outages all the way down to those times when you just need to reboot your device or the camera is not on, and all you need to do is just slide the little slider and presto, it's there. And they respond to all of that and then some. We are so very lucky to have them. The department may not be fully staffed, but you would never know that. because they operate so effectively and efficiently. They are one category of employees who make sure everyone else in our schools and offices can do their jobs every day. They are essential pieces that hold our district together. And so tonight we honor them and we say thank you, and that words and our applause, which is coming, are not enough to convey our appreciation to the district's magnificent technology team. So we're going to give them a round of applause, but then Ryan Miller, who heads this magnificent team, has a few words to share. So thank you all.
Good evening, board. Behind me, I've got four of my techs. We have Martin. Martin, raise your hand. On the side, Yared, Nicole, and Thomas. Remote, I've got Joel, our technology manager, and Joe, who's always remote during the Board of Ed meetings. And also Susanna, the linchpin, admin assistant. And then not here tonight is Cody, Tech 1, Gary, Tech 2, and Cameron, the network manager. And of course, Aaron, the person who gets to take up all the stuff that I'm leaving behind as I change roles. So kudos to Aaron too. I have a couple things I just wanted to make sure y'all were aware of for this team behind me. So we're guesstimating that about 8,000 different issues have been resolved by this team since July 1st. 4,000 of those actually have gone through the Fresh Desk ticket system. I'm doubling that because you know that people catch our texts in the hall to solve issues, is call you on the phone, send personal emails, right? Make sure you understand they're supporting 9,000 plus devices in our district. By the time you take the staff and the students' devices together, that's 9,000 devices. 9,000 devices, okay? It's not even including the Cisco phones or any of those things. Along with the devices and the individual users, we're also supporting 647 wireless access points at our network, 150 network switches, and 46 servers. And doing all this to make sure that we have uptime for every bit of the instructional time that was expected, as well as make sure our network is secure. It's a heck of a job that these guys do. They make it all run smooth day in and day out. And so thank you for recognizing them tonight.
I'd like to thank all of you for what you do, and just to let everyone know, they were working the Wednesday before Christmas because my computer went down. I called Ryan. I was in his office within the hour and they were fixing it. So I appreciate everything that they do.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Purcell. And so our next and final recognition for tonight would be towards our board. So this month, Orange County Schools is joining the North Carolina School Boards Association and other districts across the state to recognize the vital contribution school board members make to their communities. We benefit every day from the dedication and devotion our school boards show towards improving educational outcomes for our children, because they are the future. We recognize and acknowledge our board service, which reflects a year-round, talk about nonstop, this is another nonstop group, nonstop commitment on each of their respective parts to educate students in a safe and inclusive environment where we engage, challenge, and inspire them to reach their maximum potential. And that work is not work for the faint at heart. So preparing today's students to be productive citizens and leaders of tomorrow is so important. So at this time, we want to say thank you to the Orange County School Board, to Board Chair Atherton, Vice Chair Purcell, and to board members Mrs. Doyle, Ms. Hauser, Dr. Moore, Mr. Richmond, and Mrs. Smiley. So at this time, we applaud each of you for your desire to make a difference, for your willing hearts and your excellent leadership. Thank you all. And there should be a small token of our appreciation at your tables. So enjoy, and thank you again for all you do. So that concludes our recognitions for tonight, Mrs. Purcell.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Phillips.
Sure.
Okay, at this time, we need to move to adoption of our agenda.
So moved. Second.
And everyone agree?
Yeah,
All right,
consent, we're going to change consent, we wait for the consent, right?
No.
I would like to move a consent.
Yes, if you want to move
If you want to
for
pull something from
consent,
consent, it would be best to do it before there's a
Before.
vote on the motion, yes.
Oh,
You
so I
wanna
would
pull
like
it
to
now?
pull Panorama from consent and include it into our discussion
Okay,
after we talk about the Panorama work.
okay, so just so I understand, Panorama will be pulled from consent, but everything else will stay on consent.
And then when do you want to put the Panorama contract on the agenda, so we know when to?
Where would you,
I would like to put it after work session point C, D, E, so after 3D. So after we've discussed the Panorama work, then I'd like to approve discuss the contract.
May I, Vice Chair Purcell?
yes,
I was just gonna say that then it would not really, that's fine to me, but it wouldn't be a work item, right? It would just be a discussion, yeah. So it would just be a
just
discussion
want to
action item
discuss.
after the work.
okay,
So is it currently on the agenda for approval?
yes,
So if the boards may want to take action on it, you'll need to list it as a discussion and action item.
Okay, so you'll create a section 4 discussion.
So it'd be
and
section
action.
4, I think makes sense, yeah.
section 4 for discussion and action,
Mhm.
all right? Approve,
So with that said, there's been a motion made and seconded. Ms. Hauser has the right under board policy to pull that item that's been pulled. So now you could vote on the agenda as amended unless the board member who made the motion wishes to withdraw it.
Perfect, yeah.
and would you like to vote on the agenda as it is amended? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes.
Is Mr. Atherton joining online? Did we get a vote?
Mr. Atherton, did you hear all that?
Yes, aye. Can you hear me?
Mr. Atherton? He's
Can you hear me?
online.
Can't hear him for purposes of recording a vote. The motion carries in any event. I'm just, I guess we'll just note technical difficulties in the minutes.
Okay.
Not hearing Mr. Atherton's vote.
Mr. Miller, do you know that he can hear things right now?
He's connected and his mic's not muted.
My mic is unmuted.
All right. Then we'll
Hello?
move on. Right now, we need to move to public comment, and I will read the section on public comment before we get started. The Board of Education welcomes public comments, which are governed by Board Policy 2310 and North Carolina's General Statute 143-318-17. A person wishing to address the board must sign up prior to the board's regular meeting. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. When the 3 minutes end, the speaker must stop speaking immediately. Yielding time to another speaker will not be permitted. All public comments should be civil and non-disruptive. Per policy, board members will listen carefully but will not respond to speakers. And we have 5 people that have signed up tonight. And our first one is Michael Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Michael Johnson. I am an alumnus of Orange High School and the father of 2 students currently attending Orange County Public Schools. Let me begin by stating that although I disagree with a number of positions this board has taken in recent years, I do so respectfully and with appreciation for your service to our community. I hadn't paid much attention to the board until I got wind of the gender support guidelines adopted in December of 2020. This statement stood out to me. The school principal or their designee should speak with the student first to ascertain concerns the student may have, what support may be needed to keep the student safe at school, and how to involve the student's parents, if at all. Seemingly innocuous words, if at all, are what concern me. Does this mean parents can be circumvented? If this is the intent, I want to convey 2 things. Whoever developed, voted to approve, or in any way supported this plan should be ashamed of yourselves. Number 2, If a representative of this district ever has conversations with my children, especially my autistic daughter, regarding transitioning their gender, I will assemble a group of parents to file a class action lawsuit against each approving board member and the superintendent individually. Now, all of this falls under this misguided notion of what this administration terms as equity. Now, you may be wondering why someone who looks like me objects to equity and the creation of an equity plan. Here's my answer. The data and solutions are already out there if this administration truly desires to help these children, but in reality, you really don't want to. Instead, you want to give yourselves a pat on the back, show off your little diversity trophies, and go back to your gated communities while Black and Hispanic kids languish in the same destructive environments. The following findings are from a 2021 article published by the US Census Bureau. Academic performance correlates directly with household composition. Of all single-parent households, Asians comprise 7%, followed by whites at 13%, Hispanics at 23%, and Blacks, unfortunately, at 47%. Children of single-parent households fare considerably worse than those in two-parent families throughout their childhood and adolescence. In high school, they have lower test scores, college expectations, GPAs, school attendance, and they are less likely to graduate from high school and college and have far greater behavioral problems, which lead to suspensions and eventually prison time. Now, according to state data, grade level proficiency in Orange County schools for 2021-2022 were 64% for white students. Both Black and Hispanic students tied for last at 30%. Now, there was no mention of Asian students because they, not surprisingly, outperform every other ethnic group, including whites, in spite of alleged systemic racism. The census article prescribed 3 routes to improve outcomes: reduce the share of children growing up in fragile families, create policies that boost resources in single-parent households, and policies that address the risks these children face, for example, through high-quality early childhood education policies or home visiting policies. There is your equity plan. The time and resources spent on so-called equity would have been better spent on filling vacancies with priority given to Gravelly Hill, bonuses for retaining current teachers, private tutors for children in single-parent households, and providing these students the education and skills to break these vicious cycles. Thank you.
Christy Watson.
Good evening. My name is Christy Watson, and I have the privilege of serving as the literacy coach at Gravelly Hill. There's been a lot of conversation around our school this year, and I wanted to add my voice and perspective as a staff member. I'll start by stating that the issues facing Gravelly are not unique. Many schools in Orange County and across the state have vacancies, and many students are struggling to meet benchmarks as a result of the recent pandemic. However, the response and the multi-levels of support we've received, that's very unique. Every day, I see multiple members of the district office in our building. They know many of our students by name as they pull math groups and push into our vacant classrooms to support instruction. We just had a great week of onboarding our new hires and are excited about the creation of those positions. Our 3-person admin team is starting the year strong. Thank you for adding the second AP, Mr. K, and for loaning us Dr. Gammon. We have had an incredibly smooth transition in leadership, thanks to Dr. Gammon's knowledge of OCS and our building. Class coverage is still an issue, but staff appreciates the reinstatement of the planning period stipend. Not every district is doing that. Our ELA teachers were early implementers of our new curriculum, and I'm so impressed with the depth of the conversations we're having already surrounding how to best use the materials to ensure learning for our students. I'm grateful for the support I've received from our district literacy team as we guide this important work. And we are fortunate to have the most amazing PTSO. Our families have rallied to support the school at levels I've not previously seen in my 23 years of education. So thank you, board members, central office staff, and parents for your responses to our needs. You have all made positive impacts. And it may be helpful to remember that while we sometimes disagree, we ultimately have the same goal: to equip our Grizzlies with the tools they need for academic, personal, and social achievement. Our mission. Finally, let us not lose sight of our successes, the big and small wins, and the incredible work occurring daily throughout Gravelly Hill. Let's not let our frustrations diminish the efforts and hours our 30-some-odd teachers are putting in every day. If we are to recruit and retain qualified teachers, we must be conscientious of our collective messaging. People are watching, they're talking, posting, and listening. I hope all members of our community reflect: what messages are your words and actions sending? And are those messages helping us reach our goals at Gravely? As always, it is a great day to be a Grizzly. Thank you for your time. And I have more, so I'll be emailing. Thank you.
Ebony Bryant.
Good evening. My name is Ebony Freeland Bryant, and I'm honored to be the president of the Gravely Hill PTSO. I'm even more honored to have followed behind Ms. Watson, one of our amazing staff. When I took this role, I hoped that I would just have to raise some money and sell a little bit of popcorn and build community. But I was quickly reminded that part of the role of the PTSO is to advocate for our amazing GHMS community. I know how quickly voices can grow dull in these situations, and some of you probably saw my name and were concerned, but it's okay. It's important that I show up, and I'm gonna keep showing up, especially as we are in a leadership transition. It's important that I show up as often as I need to ensure that we know what is happening with our school at the district level, and to ensure that our needs are remembered and addressed. I want to make sure that you don't forget that in order for you to teach tomorrow's leaders well, Gravely Hill students need teachers in every classroom. I want to make sure that you remember that in order to operate in excellence and efficiency, that every person needs to have your help. You have to respond equitably for every school, and leaving any without is not excellent or efficient. I want you to remember that Gravely Hill has an exemplary staff, as evidenced by Ms. Watson, who has fought the good fight, often with less than they need. And it sounds good. I'm excited that her positivity was so eloquently shared. But we also remember our kids and the ones that come and ask for more help, ask for a teacher in the room. So I want you to remember that Gravely Hill is a great community. And we celebrated our entire staff this holiday season with a monetary gift and our appreciation for what they have done. But their gratitude, their excitement about that gift kind of broke my heart, because it felt like it was brand new, and that is not good. Finally, I want you to highlight and remember that empowering culture sounds good, but it requires that change be felt culture-wide. My hope is that you don't forget Gravely Hill, because I can't. Thank you.
Thank you. Polly Dornetti.
Hi there. I am sure you guys are getting tired of seeing me here. I know I am getting tired of coming to board meetings, but I will continue to come to every board meeting till every one of our students in Gravely Hill is sitting in a classroom with a teacher every day. I was here at the October board meeting to make sure that you guys were aware that our 7th grade students, all 7th grade students, were without a math teacher. Here we are going into the 2nd semester, and our 7th grade students still do not have a math teacher. As Ms. Watson brought up, there has been some great help from the district, lots of people stepping in to help those students. That does not replace having a classroom a classroom teacher. Every time we discuss student achievement, we talk about how detrimental remote schooling was to our students, how we need to overcome learning losses that there were during the pandemic while our students were learning virtually. Every 7th grade student at Gravely Hill is still learning virtually. This would be ridiculous at any school, yet I remind you, despite the valiant effort of all of our teachers at Gravely, the school received an F on the state report card. Our students need teachers. I ask not only that the district get serious about filling these vacancies and find us permanent teachers for these classes, but also that we get serious about teacher retention. Our experienced teachers need some financial incentives to stay. We've got lots of districts around us offering new teacher bonuses. We're offering new teacher bonuses. We want to keep our amazing teachers. In addition, our teachers need financial support for achieving their national board certification. That is something that I have heard speaking to numerous teachers. We love and support our teachers at Gravely, and we look forward to welcoming more of them. I actually asked my child, who was a 6th grader at Gravely, who's your favorite teacher? He had a hard time coming up with a favorite teacher because he listed off 4 of them. I then asked him, who's your least favorite teacher at Gravely? Trying to stir a little more information out of him. And he said, I don't have a teacher that isn't a favorite. So thank you. And again, we appreciate the help that we've gotten. We just need more.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Gretchen Smith.
Good evening, Chair Atherton, if you're out there, Vice Chair Purcell, Superintendent Felder. Thank you for all of your time spent focusing on education. A couple of years ago, I phoned the board chair at that time to find out the process for the decision to rename a couple of the schools in the district. I was new to the area, and I was hearing so many community members talk about this subject, and many of them were upset. Most of them I talked to, it was in an upset way, because a couple of $100,000 was being spent on the project in the middle of a pandemic and amid a yearly projected budget shortfalls that had been happening. I was told by the chair at that time that it happened by way of some community members feeling uncomfortable and coming to the board with their concerns over the naming of these schools, and the board responded by voting and funding the name change. Last year, many community members came forward to this podium to voice their concerns over media in the schools, in classrooms and libraries, depicting teen sex, teen drinking, sexual abuse of minors, sexual violence, child molestation, child rape in media. And even more community members wrote into the board by email. These comments were supposed to be posted on the meeting, but we know that many of them were not because we were copied on many of them. We received hundreds. During this time, we also heard during a board meeting that our libraries had been cleaned up when referring to Tom Sawyer and Indian in the Cupboard being removed, being taken out of the libraries. They were not said to be banned. They were just taken out of the libraries. During this time, the community members asked the Cedar Ridge librarian, one of the community members writing in about this and coming to speak, if there were philosophy books at the schools, and she was told no. And when the librarian was asked why, the parent was told that philosophy is not age appropriate for school-age children and teens. In January of 21, some of these books made it all the way to the board for a vote because some parents had submitted them for the policy review. At this time, all of the community members that had written in, that had come to the podium, this had happened over several meetings, this had already taken place. And when the board voted, they voted to keep all of these books unanimously, depicting a minor giving sexual favors to an adult, teens drinking, and sex, violent rape. The board members did not say that they were banning. They said they do not ban books, but that they had literary value. And so they all voted to keep them, not for a 2-year review, but forever. So is it literary value is the judge? Is it appropriateness is the judge? Is it only one way for one subject and another way for another subject? I'm asking for this to be brought again, and we have about 50 books that are coming up for review that are all on these topics. Concerned community members have voiced. It's time for a response to people feeling uncomfortable about this in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we have board comments. Any board members want to say anything about?
Madam Chair, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Excellent. Speaking of technology, they fixed the issue on that side, and now y'all can hear me.
Thank you. We welcome you. We will start with Dr. Moore. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone that came out to make public comment tonight, and also to thank Mr. Miller and the entire technology team for everything that you do. I know I text or email you pretty often, so thank you for helping me.
I'll just share that gratitude for the technology team. Thank you all, and wish everybody a Happy New Year.
I similarly want to just wish everyone a Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a refreshing holiday break. And also a shout out to the technology department. It was a privilege to visit your offices in December, and I really appreciate all that you do to support our students and staff. Thank you.
Ms. Hauser?
I'll add my vote to the technology team. You guys rock. And I think COVID, if anything COVID taught us, was how important technology is to our delivery of high quality education. So thank you so much.
I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year, and hope that everyone had a wonderful holiday season. And also, thank you to all the ones that spoke during public comment. Your comments are well taken and appreciated. And the technology department, thank you. I've worked hand in hand with the technology department for a number of years, and they do a wonderful job, and they've done a wonderful job this year.
I would just like to echo what everyone else has said, that I hope everyone has gotten off to a great start with the new year. We look forward to this new year with Orange County Schools and working with the superintendent and everyone in the central office and working with parents. And thank you, parents, for your comments tonight. I also appreciate you coming out on a cold night and having comments. And I can't say enough about the technology team. They're a great group. Orange County is blessed with a lot of great people working in this district, and we need to shout out more often to them. So thank you. We will now move to our work. Oh, Will, I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Ann. So
Gary reminded me.
that's okay, thank you. Just wanted to echo a lot of the comments. Happy New Year to everybody. Hope everybody had a wonderful holiday and got a chance to disconnect a little bit. Thank you for everyone that came out for public comment. Appreciate you taking the time and sharing your concerns. And definitely in real time, thanking the technology department and everything they do. It's near and dear to my heart. Thank y'all.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, out of sight, out of mind, I guess. Okay, we will move into Dr. Felder, our strategic plan with spotlight on AVID and MTSS.
Yes, thank you so much, Mrs. Purcell. Absolutely, that's exactly what we're spotlighting.
We have to approve the consent agenda.
Did we do, we
We have to vote on the consent agenda. We have to have a.
Move to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Yeah, you,
okay, I thought we had voted on.
well, you had already pulled something from the consent agenda and approved the agenda, which includes the consent agenda. So I think you're all set to vote on the consent agenda as amended at this point.
Okay, all right, vote on the consent agenda as amended.
That was my motion. Yep.
Okay, and all in favor?
And I'll second that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
Absolutely.
I told you, I'm working my way through it.
You're doing a fine job. All righty. So at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Denise Green, our Chief Academic Officer, and I believe Dr. Gammon, Interim Principal at Gravelly Hill Middle School, will also be joining virtually. The topic that we're focused on tonight is one that the board certainly has had an opportunity to see up close and personal, and that would be the district's AVID program. And so as part of outcome goal 1 of the strategic plan, we are shining a spotlight on AVID tonight. So with that, Dr. Green.
Thank you. Well, good evening, board chairperson. Atherton, I think Atherton, he's virtual. Vice Chair, Ms. Purcell, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Felder. It is always a great pleasure to come before the board and share programs that are taking place in our schools. In particular, programs that give students the skills, the knowledge, the capability of seeing themselves beyond this world, beyond this time. And we're not only preparing students to enter college, we want to prepare our students to exit college. And I'm excited to share with you one of the programs that's designed to do that. The AVID program here speaks to the tenets that are needed for college and help prepare students. I have with me this evening Dr. Chris Gammon, who is virtual and will be glad to share and answer any questions that you have. He works very intimately with our middle and high schools in the AVID program. We also have staff from Orange High School, from A.L. Standback, who will share some of the AVID activities and programs that they're doing at their school. I was pleased to invite board members to visit one of our AVID programs at A.L. Standback and to see the program in action, to see how students engage in the program, their types of learning and activities they're doing, and more importantly, how teachers engage with them. There we go. See, I wouldn't recognize the technology. Right. Thank you. Okay, so what is AVID? AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. I'm going to say that again, because many times we just hear AVID. Advancement via Individual Determination. By placing students in a learning setting that engages them in rigor with support, opportunities to explore their future pathways, and deliberate instruction in self-management and leadership, students develop the agency and skills that will serve them for life. And that's an important concept. That's an important development for our students. So it's not just in providing them the knowledge that's needed, the coursework, but what are those skills that will sustain them beyond their time here in Orange County Public Schools and sustain them beyond their time in college? Thank you. And that was the tenet, the expectation, the grounding for our AVID program. Okay. So I want to share with you the triangle that is used to define the program, the framework of the readiness program. When you look at this, you will see that the program looks at two basic areas. It looks at what students need in order to be successful in teaching those skills around instruction, systems, leadership, and culture, but more importantly, looking at the relationship. The relationship that students build with their teachers helps them to not only have the trust with their educators, but also the confidence. And that's an important piece. Do I have the confidence to know that I can tackle the learning environment? It's not only in understanding how I work through this problem, but what is it that's helping me to be successful within ourselves? And when you see the AVID in action, you will see how students are able to engage and talk about what is it that they're doing to be able to handle this work. And for those of us who've tackled college life, it's more than just having the skills and knowledge and being in college, but how do I navigate that world? How do I problem solve? And that's what AVID is intended. It breaks down the barriers. It helps to build those relationships with students so that they know that they can do it, that I can is a very important piece of the AVID program. It looks at over time the interaction that builds respect, trust, and authenticity. When educators connect with students and colleagues, students connect with peers, learning and confidence are activated among all on the campus. And all of the three connections are instrumental in helping students grow to see their capabilities and find their own way, how they're becoming independent learners and building that confidence that I can tackle this and I can do this. AVID was intended initially as for students that were first-time college attendees. And thinking back to the time when you had to navigate that world of college here, it's more than just making sure that you've completed the coursework in high school or have the credits. It's also understanding, how do I navigate that world? How do I able to function as an independent learner? Do I have those skills? If we were fortunate to have family and friends and who ventured into that world and helped to guide you, that a piece of them helps with the problems and helps with your being able to be successful in college. Well, AVID, in recognizing that we have many students who don't come with that advantage. And so how do we level the playing field? How do we make sure that we are reaching all students here and giving them more than just the content information, but also building within them the belief that if I can do this part right here, I can handle a lot. The enrollment currently this year, we have AVID in our middle and high school. So you will see the enrollment breakdown for our 6th grade students, 7th grade, and 8th grade at each of our schools there. We will, we hope and look forward to adding an AVID program next year in our partnership academy here. The principal is very excited about the possibility of bringing this for their students and helping their students to see that, yes, indeed, this is something that I can achieve. So next year, we hope to be talking about their enrollment and have an opportunity to see their part. One of the things that we will be doing and providing you in follow-up budget board updates will be the disaggregated data by our subgroups. When we have a breakdown by race and other subgroup performance. The middle school program is a year-long program, and the high school is a semester. As a district, we've identified 3 district goals for AVID, one around recruitment, one in building capacity, and a 3rd goal around college and career readiness, and the Wicker, and I'll speak more about that acronym and what it means. So for Goal 1, recruitment, by June 2023, OCS will improve the recruitment process at the middle grades and high school to ensure access to AVID for the appropriate target groups of students, as evidenced by recruitment practices and sustained student enrollment in the AVID program tier. We look to build the program tier intended to be more inclusive, not an exclusive opportunity for all students. Also, as we disaggregate the data and look at our groups that are underrepresented in our AVID program, we'll be targeting to make sure that we indeed are reaching out and have all students represented. Under Goal 2 and building capacity, by June 2024, select district and school representatives will be trained in AVID best practices as evidenced by completion of professional development and alignment of AVID best practices to school improvement and district strategic plan goals. So looking at how we are expanding and extending out some of the skill sets that students learn in AVID embedded in other content areas. How are we building other teachers' capacity to also be able to implement the goals and the skill foundation that we find in the AVID, that's embedded in the AVID program. And then when we look at Goal 3, college and career readiness, by June 2025, AVID students will demonstrate growth on student achievement measures, including our end of grades, universal screeners, and grades, and graduation rate. So as we look at other data points, where we're seeing the impact of the AVID on student performance. When we go further into each goal, in Goal 1, the AVID recruitment strategies, some of the strategies identified to support that goal achievement is that district coach supports AVID coordinators in creating a plan and implementing a recruitment plan. All AVID site coordinators have district access to EBOS to be used as a tool for recruitment. And then review district recruitment criteria and establish middle to high school transition expectations. And I want to add to that as we're looking at not only the middle to high school transition, but also elementary to middle. What are we learning? What are we doing as we look at students coming out of the elementary grades and building their interest in building the AVID programs as they enter middle school? And then coordinate student family engagement sessions to advertise and promote AVID to students and parents. So how are we getting the word out? How are we communicating? How do they know about it, the benefits? So what are we doing to engage our families, not only in their knowledge of AVID, but also their involvement in the AVID program? When we visited the AVID program at A.L. Standback, we saw evidence of the outreach into the community and using the expertise within our school community to support the students' knowledge and understanding, and also helping in building that student to adult relationship. Looking at Goal 2 around building capacity, what are we doing to ensure that our staff who are teaching AVID, right here, have the skills and knowledge to continue in working with our students, and also how we're branching out and building the capacity with others. So school representatives and AVID coordinators attend summer professional development. School principals incorporate AVID district and school site team goals into their school improvement plans. And then one-to-one and small group coaching from AVID district coach and district director to develop, align, and support school site teams, programs, and goals. And then finally, with our third goal, oops. Here, when we look at college and career readiness. And so the AVID site team will provide professional development on the WIC core, and I'll go through that. AVID support coach will provide training on the WIC core strategies to AVID coordinators as needed, with an emphasis all AVID classes are using focused note-taking, goal setting, and a tutorial process. And then finally, principals look for the WIC use in walkthroughs, PDP development, and observations. So how are they embedded? What do we see teachers doing, and what do we see in students doing? So when we take a look, WICOR, W-I-C-O-R, stands for writing, inquiry, collaboration, organizations, and reading. And when you enter the classes, you will see how that's embedded in all the activities that students are doing. Not only do you see it posted, but you will see how students are able to speak to the skills that are needed in each one of these. So they become infused as part of the learning process, and understanding that it incorporates all of those skills in order for students to understand and be successful. Nothing speaks more about a program than hearing from the people who are doing it every day, and people who can speak to activities and success they're having. So I'm pleased this evening to have with me representatives from A.L. Stanback Middle School program and Orange High School. So I'd like to bring forth at this time, we have Ms. Jamie Borland from A.L. Stanback, one of the AVID teachers, and Ms. Clancy Russell from Orange High School, a high school AVID teacher. We have also with us, who's able to answer, because he embodies and loves AVID with a passion here, and is here to support and answer any question, Mr. Peter Joseph, here from A.L. Stanback. So I'm going to turn it over and let them really speak to the program. And I believe we have a PowerPoint to share.
They have a slide. There should be a
Slide?
slide. You might want to wait before you go to it. Why don't you leave this slide up for a second? So, hello.
Hello.
I know about half of y'all. I'm glad this is adjusted for short people. Number one, I appreciate your service to the kids and to our community. And I say that because I know you don't get paid, and you give, and it's hard. Thank you for what you do. What is AVID? AVID is a program to help kids be successful in school and life. It is focused on first generation and or underserved and or low socioeconomic status and or special circumstance students. Students applied to be in the program. When is it? It's supposed to meet every day. It's an elective class, although it does not meet every day at the high school. We can talk more about that in a minute. When I say to help kids be successful in school and life, in school, it is by teaching the WICOR strategies on the screen, the academic strategies. For example, in the W, you see note-taking, and Cornell Note or focus note-taking is taught, implemented, and monitored by our AVID teachers. We want our students who want to be in the program to use this strategy, all right? That's a sampling. How to be successful in life with positive mindsets. Give your best. Think harder and smarter. Struggle to succeed. Adjust your approach and always do your best. That was the ALS AVID motto, and still is, okay? So what do? I am on vacation for life after 32 years of teaching, and I am giving my supposed wisdom to the AVID programs in the district and to Dr. Gammon. So I painfully, irritatingly but effectively update all of our AVID teachers and coordinators and principals weekly on what we hope to be doing and accomplish, due dates, and positive things that are going on. I am trying to create alignment of all of our AVID programs with the basic Wicker strategies we've selected, such as in W. We do want all of our AVID programs teaching, having our students use and monitoring the use of focused note-taking. Another W we want all of our AVID programs to do is to have them teach and have students learn how to write a paragraph citing evidence or using details, right? When I say basic Wicker, I'm talking about the car with wheels, the lights work, okay? The windows go up and down, just the basic stuff. I do not want to take away from the creativity and talent of our teachers, but we do want to align what we're doing in our schools. Secondly, I help teachers create goals for their site teams, such as recruitment. That was one of the slides. With rolling recruitment during the year and then for the next school year from our feeder schools. I support our teachers by modeling and tutorials, by helping them with the AVID curriculum and with recruitment. I have our AVID teachers and coordinators do reflections quarterly on what they're doing well and what they need to work towards. It's just between me and them. That is something that I hope they're doing themselves. They will expect from their students. They reflect on their own learning. And I'm a lens for Dr. Gammon, just to bounce ideas off or give my, if he needs my opinion about something with my supposed wisdom. But I enjoy this. I do a few hours a week, and I need to stop talking. So I want to say this. First up, some of you were at ALS. You saw Ms. Borland in action. She is tremendous. I'm honored because she was on my site team when I was there, and we called her Mama AVID. And she not only has carried on the program, but she is elevating it, and she can tell you that herself.
Good evening, board. I'm Jamie Borland. I am an Orange County native. I have grown up here, went to school here, graduated from here, and I've been teaching here for about 20 years, and I love this county. And I love this program. I taught math for 25 years and loved it. That was my passion. That's what I wanted to do all the time. And then when Peter decided it was time for him to move on, I said, this AVID thing, I have seen it in action. Both of my daughters have been part of the AVID program. My youngest daughter is right now one of Clancy's students in 9th grade at Orange High School. And I am definitely a testimony for the success of this program and how amazing it is. So I can only preach its praises all the time because AVID works when it's done right. I want to thank you all that got to come to my classroom. My kids were so intimidated, but they did so amazing. And I told them, I said, you guys, you rocked it. Like, they were so impressed by you. And I said, the fact that you can lead these groups without having to even have a tutor in there is just amazing. So for that, I thank them because they were amazing. Just a few things that we do, because of course they only gave me one slide. I probably could have filled up 5 slides with the things that we do. But Wicker is definitely part of our focus this year at A.L. Standback. Before we started the school year, we did professional development, my site team and I, on the things that we had gained in Baltimore last summer when we were at the conference. And we had a couple of hours, we did training and we modeled for them the AVID tenets on that you do a small bit of work and you then take it back and you try it in your own classroom. So we did some professional development with them, and then we have continued that process by giving them little highlights of strategies to try. And we've been basing them on the Wicker. So in November, they all got a writing strategy to try. December, January, they all have gotten an inquiry strategy to try. So we're carrying that out throughout the year. And I think on the 23rd, my plan is to work with the exploratory teachers to also see how they are incorporating Wicker, because sometimes that becomes a little bit difficult when you're doing band or you're doing chorus. How do we do these things and get the kids to understand that you can see it everywhere? So we are going to be working on that throughout the rest of this year as one of our goals for our site team. The tutorial process, which some of you got to see, we work on tutorial request forms Monday and Wednesday in class. They get a timed set amount. If they don't get to finish it in that amount of time, then they have to do that for homework. They choose a point of confusion. What is something that you need help with? What is something that you're struggling with right now? What is something that you need to review? And then they take that on Tuesdays and Thursdays and we turn that into small groups. So the tutors and I choose groups, we put them together. Sometimes the kids run them, sometimes the tutors run them. I currently have 4 tutors that come in 2 days a week, 2 that are there all day, and then 2 that split the rest of the time during the day. I also have had UNC interns come in, and they split between me and the counseling department, and they have been amazing. I had 2 last spring, 1 this past in the fall, and I've got 1 that just started today. And they are amazing to come in and help out with all the tutoring and stuff like that goes on. College awareness, I think that just kind of streams through everything that we do. They do research on out-of-state colleges. They have college vocab that they enter in their binders every couple of weeks or so. They have research that they do. We are hopefully going to get to go on a field trip. Each grade level is going to get to hopefully go on a field trip. Even though I'm a little disappointed that the school systems say they won't do tours for middle schoolers, we're going to do them on our own. Mr. Josie's is the UNC know-all, so he's going to go with us on that one and a couple of others. And then we also carry that school-wide in March when we do what we call March Madness. We started that as a group when I was on the site team, and I've carried that on, and that's where we bring college awareness to all the students at AL Stenback, and we have different scavenger hunts, and they do different activities on Fridays and things like that to learn more about what is an in-state college, what is an out-of-state college, what is a private college, what is a community college, how can I find out more about all these different things.
School-wide College Awareness Month.
Yeah.
Right? School-wide.
It's all month, yeah, we do, and we eat cake at the end of the month. It's fun. And then recruitment would be the last thing I feel like I've really been passionate about, and trying to make sure that at the middle school level we are increasing. Last year I had, I think, about 72 AVID students at Stenback, and this year I've upped that to 88, and I hope to continue to build that. Right now, I'm in the middle of asking my 6th grade teachers if they have students that they feel like could be recommended, and I'm going to start a Bulldog Academy, which is kind of our enrichment time in the morning, that I can pull a few more 6th graders in to hopefully get them into the loop for next year. I went with the counselors to all of our large feeder elementary schools, New Hope, Grady Brown, and talked to all the kids when we did this counseling bit with them for just for bringing awareness to them. I took applications for everybody. Everybody could have one that wanted one. So we did a really, really great job with that last year in 6th grade. And then hopefully I'm going to continue to do that this year, and going into the 7th and 8th grade registrations and just offering it to other students that might be interested. So that's kind of a just slight overview of the middle school.
That's awesome. I want to jump in a couple of things, because Ms. Moore, you had a question about a AVID night I saw in the email. And one thing that our middle school AVID coordinators do is they piggyback on the Rising 6th grade parent night. And when all these people are coming into the school at our middle schools, they set up stations and rotations, and one of them is AVID. We're at Stenback. Ms. Borland has AVID students displaying how to keep a binder, how to take notes, talking about the AVID program as advertisement. So yes, there is a night, and it's piggybacked when you have all these people coming in. You heard some of the other recruitment strategies. She's reaching out, to teachers at the school, rolling recruitment. And that's part of the recruitment plan, part of one of the site team plans we put together at Orange Middle and Gravelly Hill. Right now, they are actively reaching out to teachers for possible candidates to add in the second semester. So action is happening. Ms. Borland is awesome. The second person, I want to stop talking some more, but I have to say the second person, Clancy Russell, is the AVID program at Orange High School. Okay, she is it by circumstance, and she saved the program through attrition and people leaving and people who had experience in doing it. She saved it. So she is a young superstar who is doing great things, and I might make some suggestions on what else we can do at Orange. We'll see if you're open to that. I don't get in trouble, but I need to let her talk and let her talk about what she's doing now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Clancy Russell. I'm the AVID teacher at Orange High School. This is my 4th year at Orange. And before I start giving an overview of some of our goals and objectives, I just want to thank Mrs. Borland and the other middle school teachers for doing such a good job of laying the foundation for some of these skills, because it really gives us something solid to build upon at the high school level. So thank you very much for that. Our biggest objective at Orange AVID is to promote academic success, and that's going to look different for every student, because some students come in and they're taking all honors classes and they're making straight A's right off the bat. But we have other students who are enrolled in standard courses, but as long as they have that intrinsic motivation to eventually take the honors or the CCP or the AP courses, we welcome them into AVID. And to help them be successful, we also participate in the weekly tutorials. We don't have outside tutors who come in, so students kind of take it upon themselves to step into that role, and it's been really great to see them take agency like that and take ownership of their learning and participate in this inquiry-based learning. We also participate in grade reflections, so students will track their assignments, their grades, if they're missing anything, and this helps them visualize where they're at currently versus where they want to be, and we can kind of develop a plan to help bridge that gap. Because most of our students are first-generation college students, or will be first-generation college students, we really try to immerse them in all things college. So this is everything from simple stuff like college memorabilia on the walls to really sitting down and breaking down the Common App or the documents that they'll need in order to be accepted into college. Because I think some of us may take for granted that those things seem intuitive, but if you're not familiar with that process, it can be a really big barrier. So we hope to knock that down. We also have college representatives come to visit virtually or in person, and fingers crossed that we'll get to go on an in-person campus field trip soon, because students would love that. And they can't get to college by themselves, so we really try to develop a strong support system within Orange High School, so students know who their counselor is. They know how to make an appointment with their counselor. They know that this is their point person for all things social, emotional, to developing a good course schedule for themselves. And I think one of the biggest supports that they have is each other, because there's a lot of course overlap that they have over the months and over the years. So it kind of works to have an accountability buddy that might challenge them to take courses that are rigorous that they may not be up for otherwise. And then finally, when our AVID students leave, we really hope that they've strengthened their leadership skills. We've seen this with previous AVID students who have gotten really impressive scholarships and college acceptances. We have students who were competitive in scholarships like the Moorhead Cane and Questbridge. So it's been really great to see them achieve those things. And then we also have a lot of club and community involvement. Of course, students know that this is going to help them be competitive when it comes to getting into college, but also help build their skills no matter what they choose to pursue after college. And then as we approach the spring semester, we will start kind of ramping up our recruitment process. And we always have high school AVID students go to middle schools. We'll walk down to Orange Middle and talk to Miss Dixon's class. We'll hop on a Zoom call with Mrs. Borland and talk to their students. And as you know, it's a lot more meaningful for students to hear from other students rather than me lecturing to them. So these are just some of the things that we hope to accomplish. And I'm looking forward to seeing the program grow. Thank you.
Is that not an awesome sight to picture Orange High School AVID students walking over to Orange Middle School and talking about AVID and the benefits of it? So AVID advocates and supports kids for opportunities and to go into higher level classes down the road, right? But just not to get in the classes. I said support. Once they're in the classes, help them, support them to be successful in them. It's just not getting into the higher level classes. So AVID really is, it is a lot more than just the academic. It's about the positive mindsets and surrounding yourself with positive people. Kids choose to be in the program and agree to use the strategies. It's supposed to meet every day. If you do it half a year, you're only getting support half a year, right? So that might be something to think about in the future for our high schools that are implementing AVID, who are limited in their scheduling and resources. I think that's all I should say, except, do you have any questions? Please ask, and I'll tell you what I think. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Josie and Ms. Borland and Ms. Russell. The question I had was, did I understand that the white, is it WICOR, the acronym? WICOR. That WICOR training is happening for all staff, so teachers could be using it in their classes outside of AVID?
So our AVID programs in schools are on a spectrum of implementation. Implementation at a school is based on the weight and effort and focus put on it. And the principal at A.L. Standback, if you look at his previous school improvement plan, mentioned AVID quite a bit. That tells you something. So at A.L. Standback, will you speak to that?
Yes, at A.L. Standback, we started the beginning of the year doing PD before school started, just giving them the basics for some different strategies they could use and some pieces that they could kind of record or how they could make kids aware. I don't know if you all remember, but in my room, I have the wicker letters and then I have lights that go with them. And so most of the time, the beginning of the day, I'll say, okay, what strategies are we going to use today? And the kids will identify, oh, we're writing today because we're doing our TRF, or we're doing inquiry today because we're doing tutorials. So we'll all be working together. So that started at the beginning of the year. And then we have continued that as a site team to go through and talk about different strategies for each individual letter and each individual piece that they can use within their classroom and challenge them to at least use them once during that month. And then by the end of this year, then we will have covered strategies for all of the different pieces of wicker. And then we will do a summary thing at the end of the school year with some more PD to carry that through for the whole year. So hopefully that will be something that they are working with, identifying with the kids to let the kids know, you know, this is where this wicker is going. This is why we're talking about it, and not just in the AVID classroom. They want all of the kids to understand that it is an AVID strategy, but it is also strategies that work for all kids. So that was our big goal at A.L. Standback this year.
And Mr. One of the areas of growth that you will see here for the middle school is expanding out. So how do we take, you know, some of the skills, some of the strategies that they talked about and embed it and infuse it across the school? What I presented is a 3-year plan, and recruitment and expansion of the program is part of what we're looking for and what we hope to achieve in our 3 years.
So we're moving in the right direction, and some schools are ahead of others.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
No.
No.
Is Dr. Gammon wanting to say something?
Is Dr. Gammon going to speak to us as well?
He's on the screen. Dr. Gammon?
Hey, Dr. Green, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. I do want to take a moment to sincerely thank Ms. Borland, Ms. Russell, Mr. Josie's for being there this evening and for all of your hard work. This has certainly been a process, and Dr. Green has done a wonderful job of presenting the 3-year plan as it's laid out, with recruitment being that first level of focus for us, and making sure that we're spending this spring being very intentional about that process. And a lot of those pieces are already moving. And I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to also acknowledge the power of having someone from your own district that has dedicated their life of service to a district that's maybe in a lifelong retirement phase, as Mr. Josie's noted earlier, but who's willing to give of his time, because there is no better educator or educational experience for any of us, including myself, than walking alongside someone who's actually done the work and having someone that makes themselves available not only to our teachers, but in classrooms every week, impacting students still. And so I can't thank him enough for that. But I think when we're thinking of education at a more macro level, this is a really special partnership to have someone that's there and that's willing to invest in that way. And I've learned quite a great deal from him. So sincerely appreciate it. I don't want to hold us up. I know we need to continue moving forward, but thank you. And I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Sarah?
I do just have one, and yes, thank you all for sharing like what it feels like for the students. I'm sorry, I have two. One is, have we looked at like in a quantitative way, the impact on college attainment and completion? Because one of the things that I saw about AVID is that, you know, a low-income first-generation student who does AVID is like 4 times as likely to graduate from college. And so that are our students graduating from college at a higher rate?
Can I take that? All right,
Yeah.
so right now, the high schools don't have AVID in junior, senior.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes it hard to tie, you know, how they're doing when they're in college. I think Mr. Johnson mentioned once, there's like this college resource site you can go to and see how kids are doing. And this was kind of anecdotal a couple of years ago, but he said that it was surprising how well that students who had gone through the AVID program were doing. But I can't offer more than that. But honestly, that's what we want to know, right?
Yeah.
We want to know, do kids go on to college and are they successful, or not in college, but, you know, with other things in their lives? So that's the best I can do.
I would say one other thing that we do with Mr. Josie's encouragement is to use EVOS data as teachers of AVID students and follow their growth as we go through the different years of them being in AVID, since they're encouraged to be in AVID 6th through 8th grade. So we do look at them as incoming 6th graders, and then as they progress through, and like I said, maybe I thought I said it, but our 8th graders, we have quite a few that are taking English 1 and Math 1. So we also look at that progress to see how they are progressing to take the advanced classes that they can take in middle school before they go to high school. So we do follow that as a cohort for each one of them, and look at that to make sure that we're serving them and getting them where they need to be.
So yes, the data in real time, and this was pre-pandemic, and I mentioned this to some of you all, like our 7th grade ALS AVID, which had a class of about 25, you know, set 25, 25, was 100% proficient in math in 7th grade, 2 years in a row, okay? And most of our students were minority students, okay? So there are many benefits to AVID if the kids choose to do it and implement it. But yes, we need to use more data, and we're trying to use EVOS also. We got to go get kids for AVID. You say Avid, they don't come, we got to go get them. So we're trying to use it that way too, as part of the recruitment process.
That's great. And I bet I don't have more question on top of that. Just thank you all for that. I would bet that a lot of these skills that you're teaching in middle school are very applicable directly to college, so that, even if they haven't had those later grades. There was some sort of thing in Education NC today about the use of the National Student Clearinghouse data in North Carolina, like maybe having more access to it or something. So this actually could be a thing that is now easier for us to look at, is what's happening to these students later.
I'd want to see it just for information and see if we're moving in the right direction. Definitely. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. But
thank you.
Ms. Alva?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you also for coming. For all of you, as you heard, Mr. Joyce likes to send the board emails once in a while to let us know how you're doing. And I believe everything you ever say. So, thank you for this program. It's something we're really, really proud of. Explain, you talk about recruitment and you talk, because it sounds like there's something that all of our students can benefit, all our secondary students can benefit from. So is a problem that, and I've had parents ask me about the Wicker program and executive function and things like that. Some were here tonight, but is the challenge that people don't know about it? Is the challenge that our schools don't have the capacity to deliver? What is limiting our ability to expand this program?
so one, students have to choose to be in it. And in middle school, sometimes that means giving up an elective. That means if you're taking band, you can be limited because a semester you have to take gym. That's a state. It gets complicated and it eliminates some of the kids from taking it in the middle school. That's a complicated question because there's just not one quick answer. But one thing to think about is the AVID class is like in class, getting it every day. The AVID program is if you have a site team and people working together, even though they're not the elective teacher. And the AVID system, those Wicker principles, ultimately utopia, you want school-wide. An organization, you want eventually every kid, if they still have papers, putting it in a notebook and being organized. And your teachers teaching that and monitoring it, that's the utopia. But that's one of the principles one of the Wicker principles, yes, you would want school-wide. So you might not want to be in the program because you're limited in other things day in, day out. But the overall principles, the whole school hopefully would be exposed to one day. We can talk more, but
We will.
I'm talking too much already.
We will.
Anyone else? Any comments?
Yes, and I had a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody coming out tonight. This program I'm a big fan of, really enjoy seeing the students. And, although we talk about, college skills, these are really life skills. These are skills that kids, whether they go to college or not, can use these skills in life. And I'll just remind kind of everyone that, when we were going through the pandemic, we used a lot of AVID light, if you will, to other areas to try to help with kids and how they study, how we can get them help they needed. So, I think this is a program that is really key and shows the benefit, and, always excited to hear about it. So thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all for the support you give to all of our students.
I would just like to reiterate that I appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate you inviting us into the classroom too, because I was blown away by what I saw. I've always been an AVID supporter, and I think what you've done over the last couple of years has really bumped it up. And I appreciate what Ms. Russell said tonight, because she made a pretty profound statement, I think, when she said the kids can't get to college by themselves. And they need all the help they can get. They may not think that they do, but they do need all the help that they can get to college or to some form of higher education. It may not be college for every child, but something that will bump them up into the next level. And I think this program is doing a lot to help with that.
And I think Lacey and I would welcome anybody that wants to come visit anytime. Just anytime you want, come visit. And please,
Thank you.
please come visit.
We'll find you. We'll find you. Thank you
You
all.
can see the passion that they have for AVID here, and it starts with that passion, that individual passion from the teachers, because that relationship that they build with students is indeed a part of the growth and the success that we see from our students. So let's give them applause for all their hard work.
Yes.
Many of the things you talked about tonight, your questions are part of our areas for growth. We're looking at recruitment, looking at making sure, how do we expand the program? How do we not only expand in numbers of students enrolled, but also expand across our school, that it's not just within the AVID class that we're seeing some of the tenants introduce. And then question about tracking beyond high school, tracking to see how kids are being successful in college and are graduating from college. So one of the things at the high school, the intentional alignment with some of our advanced placement IB courses right here that we know are indeed those pathways to college. And that's the data that we want to bring back and share with you. One final piece here to show the alignment here of AVID to our strategic plan. You will see it is one of the data points that we are monitoring, our recruitment, our disaggregation of data. And when we look at our alignment to the instructional framework, the questions that we posed in our instructional framework clearly speaks to our AVID program here. So we are pleased and very proud of the program, pleased and extremely proud of what our teachers are doing there, and certainly pleased with our student performance. So thank you very much here, and any additional questions you have for me or Dr. Gammon. Thank you, Dr. Gammon, for signing on. He's preparing for principalship tomorrow at Gravely and also with his children.
Right.
Thank y'all very much.
All right, that was absolutely wonderful, and we also look forward to having students in the AVID program to attend a board meeting in the future. So stay tuned, more to come with AVID. All right, at this time, we're going to shift gears, and I'm going to invite a number of folks up to provide the board with an update on fall concussions and head injury report. And so as they make their way up to the podium, led by Mr. Foster and Ms. Compton.
Well, good evening, Chair Atherton, Vice Chair Purcell, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Felder. Tonight, we'd like to present fall concussion data and head injury data within Orange County schools. The data compiled will consist of or encompass concussion and head injury data, sports-related and non-sports related concussions and head injuries. This data, as we move forward, will pretty much provide a baseline for us as we continue to track each season between fall, winter, and spring sports-related seasons, and provides a baseline and framework for this data. With me today, Sylvia Compton, our district lead nurse, that will speak a little bit later on the non-sports related concussions and head injuries. Athletic trainer, Emily Gaddy, at Orange High School, and I believe Tim Savage, our athletic trainer at Cedar Ridge High School, may be on virtually with us. And these folks will provide some medical expertise related to concussions and head injury data that we have. As an overview, I'll start with taking a look at defining what a concussion is and a description of a concussion. We'll get into education and compliance. We'll take a look at and summarize the data and talk about some things that we can do to minimize concussions from a sports-related standpoint. We take the health and safety of our student athletes very seriously, all right? And it is a key element in what we do in our day-to-day operation within Orange County schools. In particular, concussions and head injuries are at the forefront, okay? Our athletic trainers do a tremendous job ensuring that our coaches, ADs, all of our stakeholders, right, parents, et cetera, are educated and that compliance is a major part of what we do in our day-to-day as well. So can't emphasize enough the importance of our full-time athletic trainers that we have within Orange County schools as well. Concussion, traumatic brain injury caused by direct or indirect impact to the head that results in a disruption of normal brain function, which may or may not result in a loss of consciousness. Now, when we're talking about athletics by nature, we know that getting a concussion or head injury is a risk, from whether it's a contact sport or non-contact sport. We know that it's a potential for a risk to gain a head injury or concussion. Data tells us, and of note, that an estimated 5 to 10% of athletes will experience a concussion in any given sports season. The data that we have from an athletic standpoint falls within that threshold of 5 to 10%. Education and compliance. To ensure concussion and head injuries do not go unnoticed, all right, education and compliance is extremely important. All right, we want to, again, remain at the forefront of educating all of our stakeholders, from ADs, coaches, student athletes, volunteer coaches, parents, et cetera, and ensuring that the paperwork involved with the Goodfellow-Waller Concussion Awareness Act is compliant. All right, again, athletic trainers and ADs do a tremendous job ensuring that that paperwork is compliant. When we look at that, right, there's 3 areas that the Goodfellow-Waller Concussion Awareness Act focus on, and that's in education, emergency action plan, and post-concussion protocol implementation, and clearance and return to play, practice and play following a concussion. And they provide a ton of information, all right, related to the compliance checklist for concussions, how do we manage it, and the like. From an eligibility standpoint, student athlete and parent requirement is that they must review, complete, and sign the Goodfellow-Waller Concussion Information Sheet. And on this sheet, it identifies what a concussion is. It identifies how to diagnose. All right, it identifies what an individual should be doing as a result of a concussion. It identifies a checklist for parents and student athletes to take a look at to ensure that they are very knowledgeable of a concussion. From a coach certification standpoint, before a coach can step on a court, field, playing surface, or what have you, or before they engage in any student athletes, they must complete the hour-long NFHS concussion and sports course as well. Again, continuing that education, continuing that compliance, and ensuring, all right, that all of our stakeholders are well-versed in concussion protocol and head injury protocol as well. When we talk about those requirements, the Act, in terms of the Act, it is addressed in those 3 components, the information sheet and the concussion and sports course that our coaches take. All those 3 components are addressed and emphasized in there. Again, there's the education piece, emergency action, and post-concussion protocol implementation, and the clearance and return to play or practice following concussion as well are extremely emphasized. Looking at our data from the fall, and again, this is data only from this past fall, and taking a look at football in particular, with our contact sport. At Cedar Ridge, there were 3 diagnosed concussions, and at Orange High School, there were 8 diagnosed concussions. I think it's important to note when you look at those numbers, from a football standpoint, Cedar Ridge High School only had varsity football, okay? Orange High School both had 8, so there's an uptick with that number because they had both a JV and a varsity program. So those numbers are much larger when we look at that and kind of looking at how we fall into that 5 to 10% threshold. At AL Standback, we had 1 football-related concussion, none reported at both Gravely Hill and Orange Middle School. We have some of our non-contact sports as cross country, women's golf, women's tennis, did not report any. We had 1 in soccer at Gravely Hill, and typically soccer can be a higher threshold for concussions as well, especially women's soccer for that matter. But this fall rather, I should say, we only had 1 diagnosed concussion with Gravely Hill soccer there. And that will round out our fall concussion data from a sports-related standpoint. I'm going to turn things over to Sylvia Compton to talk about our concussion and head injuries from a non-sport-related component and within our school system.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to say I have missed you guys. For about 1.5 years, I was here every night or every Monday night, all the time, talking about COVID. So it's so nice to come and talk to you something other than COVID. So thank you for that. I have a disclaimer here, and it's my fault, and I apologize. I know we do send you notes prior about what we're going to talk about. My fault, I was told to get information on concussions, didn't hear head injury until last week. And as a nurse, when you hear concussion and head injury, they're 2 different things. Like you said, a concussion is a diagnosis. Head injury, as far as school nurses go, we do monitor any and all head injuries, as well as concussions. And in October 1st, 2015, the State Board of Education of North Carolina did add into the addendum in the policy of the HRS-E001 to also include return to learn after a concussion. As you can imagine, there are several side effects of concussion, such as dizziness, headaches, sensitivity to light, fatigue. You can even have some mood episodes, more cognitive fatigue, as well as physical fatigue. So that definitely would affect the returning to learn. Per our school policy, we also have mandatory staff yearly training that we do access through Public School Works. It's a 20-minute training for concussions in school. Nurses do also review this with staff. When we do receive a diagnosis of a concussion for a student, whether it is sports related or not, we do follow up with accommodations. Those accommodations primarily come from their medical provider. It could be an athletic trainer, a physician assistant, a nurse practitioner, or a medical doctor. We do share those plans with our staff that do educate the students or have anything to do with their education, and we do monitor that time frame. Most concussions do resolve within 1 to 2 weeks, but we do have some that can last for several months. So we do have to constantly reevaluate and see if we're progressing in the time, such as reduced class time, reduced time during the day, reduce screen time. If they need printed material, we call them brain breaks. If they just need to stop, if they do get a certain symptom, such as a headache, blurry vision. Our next slide, we're going to talk about the non-sport concussions and head injuries. The reason we want to talk about head injuries is because we also do monitor that. The reason school nurses monitor that is because not every concussion is diagnosed immediately after a head injury. It can take up to a week later to start developing symptoms or put together that those are symptoms related to your head injury. A lot of times a kid might have a second injury within a couple-week time frame that may compile that initial injury. So that's why we do keep track of those numbers as well. We keep track of those through accident and incident reports that are given to us from our staff, or if we do see those students, we will fill them out, and that's how we keep track of that. So at Cedar Ridge, we did have 1 in-school concussion. So there was a head injury that occurred within the school setting that did get diagnosed with a concussion. And then you'll see there was a concussion, but the injury occurred outside of school. An overall in-school injury at Cedar Ridge would have been 14. Total days missed of all of these, we would say 6 days. Orange High School, 1 concussion that occurred within school, not related to sports, 2 outside of school, and 7 head injuries. And when I say head injuries and concussion, remember, there's no diagnosis. So that's why we're listing those 2. And again, total days missed there would have been 6. Partnership, we've had no head injuries or concussions. A.L. Standback, 3 head injuries. Gravely Hill, 5. Orange Middle, we did have 1 outside concussion diagnosed, 10 in-school head injuries. Central Elementary, 1 concussion outside, 3 in-school head injuries. Brady A. Brown, 1 outside school concussion head injury, and 11 in-school head injuries. Eflin Cheeks Global, we have 12 in-school head injuries. Hillsborough Elementary, we had 2. New Hope, none. And the fall would be from September, or August rather, to November. I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that on our numbers as well. Pathways Elementary would have been 1 outside concussion diagnosed, head injuries 1, and River Park head injury, we have 25 in school. That's my last slide, but one thing I did notice in reviewing all of this, overall where these injuries occur, high school, you're seeing most of these occur in PE class. Middle school, we're seeing PE and recess. Elementary school, we're seeing at recess and in the class. And I think to consider an elementary school, a lot younger, not really coordinated, holding out of the chair a lot was one of those things, bumping your head on the desk, those type of things. Even if they're minor head injuries, we do ask all staff to send those students to the nurse for evaluation. We do fill out head injury assessment forms and head injury notification letter that we do send home with the students, and we do notify parents when they do occur. And I'm gonna hand it over.
Thank you, Sylvia. In closing, while we know that concussions and head injuries cannot be prevented, we know we can put some things in to kind of minimize concussion risk, in particular in athletics. So the first thing, again, is something that I've talked about quite a bit, is about education and awareness, right? Ensuring that all of our stakeholders are educated and aware in terms of what a concussion looks like, what it entails, and the like. The other piece is properly fitting of equipment, sport-appropriate headgear and athletic equipment. We want to ensure that those components fit well to reduce and minimize the risk for concussion as well. We want to allow the equipment to do what it is supposed to do, all right, in its protection and in stages as well. Then there's a teaching and utilizing proper technique and safe play. From a coaching standpoint, I think it is critical to ensure that our coaches are coaching and teaching proper techniques, right, through constant repetition and practice, so it becomes second nature, so that these things don't occur within a game, all right, and to minimize that. So that's a critical component as well in terms of minimizing that risk. And finally, limiting, contact periods in practice. Now in a day and age where you can kind of simulate that type of contact and conditioning in practice, where you're not always banging each other up or beating each other up from that standpoint, and limiting those contact reps in practice throughout a practice period for the most part as well. Well, thank you for your time. I'll be glad to take any questions at this time as well.
Thank you all for your information. Oh, excuse me, go ahead. Ms. Molly.
Thank you, and thank you for all of this information. This might be a question for Ms. Gaddy, actually, which is, in the past, this is pre-COVID, when you would come and present these reports, I know that there were UNC studies that were being done, and I think it might be that those were sort of closing out that year that COVID arrived. But I was curious, I know some of that was about proper concussion education and some of that. So I was just curious what all happened with that.
In total, we did 4 different studies with UNC on concussions and head injuries, and then Cedar Ridge did one with UNC on heat and weather. With COVID, a lot of the IRB stuff that involved individual contact was stopped. But they still know we're out there. And so as those start to ramp back up, anything that they need for high school related, we're available. Those studies did all complete before COVID. One has been published. The other two are in review. So I didn't know if you had any specific questions about them or.
Not specific questions. I was curious whether any of that, sort of what happened there because of how things got disrupted that year and whether we were still participating in any of
Yeah,
that.
no, they had all finished prior to COVID.
I mean, it seems to me like I found an old report of like multiple years, and it seems like we're in a pretty good place relative to historic concussions anyway. I don't know about concussions and head injuries actually, but
I know in the past we had not broken it down by season. We just did a yearly one broken down by sport. So in terms of like where we are at this point in the year, I would have to go back and compare between the years.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you all for all you do.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right, so we're ready to shift gears to the next topic, and want to again thank the team for presenting and Ms. Gaddy for being here tonight. We appreciate you. All right, so the next topic will be the Panorama Family Perception Survey data and an update, albeit very brief, on family liaisons, and that by our student Panorama Perception Survey data. So we'll just flow from one to the next.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And kicking it off will be Kevin Smith, our Chief Public Information Officer.
Thank you, Dr. Felder.
Sure.
Chair Atherton, Vice Chair Purcell, members of the board, thank you for giving us a chance to share this. I know you've heard the phrase many, many times, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And I think that if there's one thing I want you to take away from tonight's presentation, when it comes to gathering quantitative data on family perceptions, that's kind of where we are. I've had the good fortune of getting to look over the past few years, and especially the last 2 years when there's been a lot of intense effort and stops and starts in this regard. And as the strategic planning process has helped to really focus our energies among leadership at the school level, engaging folks in the community as well, getting quantitative data on how families are relating to our schools has been one of the last things to show up. And so as we were going through the strategic planning process, one of the things that we've learned is that family engagement plays a very important role, but it's hard to figure out how to put it into place. Our mission statement is all about what students get because of what we do in schools. So the role of families is something that, as you can see from the last bullet point, it's really unscored, but it is felt. The influence of how families relate to our schools is felt everywhere. The research is clear. Dr. Dreher is not going to go into any of it in chapter and verse tonight, but it's all over the place. But we don't know exactly how to quantify it. And that's one of the challenges that we face. So there's a little bit of a small irony. Goal 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? They're written in order right behind you. We remind ourselves of them every day. Goal 4 is often the one that Dr. Felder leads with when she does a strategic plan presentation. As Mrs. Purcell might remember, we start with goal 4 because it kind of leads us up the ladder to goal 1, which is the peak of teaching tomorrow's leaders. And literally tonight, we're going to be starting with goal 4 and the very last goal within the student outcome goal, goal 3 of our goal 4, and focusing really on kind of the tail. Because if we can create the right conditions in one area, it opens the door to create the right conditions for the next thing to happen. And this virtuous cycle is the kind of thing that we want to see repeated again and again. So you've seen this image. If you've been on the board and if you've been around our leadership, you've seen this image in the past. It recently morphed to become this image during the flamboyant period, what I like to call the area when we were really very intensively working on this relationship between schools and community, between families and people who could make things happen in schools who were not students. Anybody who's not a student, what can we do to make sure that everyone is being heard, especially those voices, those components of our community, those elements who have something very important to contribute, but who have either been muted, marginalized, or for whatever reason, not heard fully. And that's been a big topic of conversation since I came on board this summer, and I know it's been a very important point of focus for the board and for leadership here. So you can see that there are ways that we get into this. The strategic planning process, we're in a 5-year plan. The Flamboyant Fellowship, which is currently on pause for a number of different reasons related to structural issues on their end, as well as some things that have taken our interest. But the monthly XCollab meetings, this is something that I find very, very beneficial, and I know that our team and the schools find it very beneficial to know that we are continually engaging as a leadership group, looking at how we can most faithfully implement our strategic plan. And so this is what it looks like today. And you've seen this presented in the community. It's being presented all over the place. We remind ourselves of it right behind you every time we gather with you for a board meeting. So as I said, here is what the strategic plan looks like from my perspective at the Communications and Family Engagement Office. This is goal 4, empowering culture, which speaks about equity, it speaks about voice. And as we heard Ms. Bryant say, Ms. Bryant's not here right now, but she's definitely still in the room with me. She said, if change is happening, it has to be felt culture-wide, otherwise you're not affecting culture. I thought, well, there you go. Thank you, Ms. Bryant, for helping to tee up our presentation tonight. As you can see here, one of the things that we had to leave unsaid was, where are we going? We knew we wanted to go up, but we didn't know what the baseline was going to be. And so we struggled for weeks and months. How are we going to put this into a framework that we can understand? So using these 3 key performance indicators of getting families to engage with their children's grades and the messaging back and forth between schools, creating more parent engagement opportunities that are led by the district, and just bluntly increasing the attendance at Parent Academy or Family Academy sessions among our Black and Hispanic families, or any family who feels that they have been marginalized for any reason, or who doesn't feel fully involved, fully welcomed, having full and unfettered access to the school and to what they need for their children. That's where my focus is. And that, again, is the kind of thing that should create favorable conditions for so many of the other really good things to happen that we want to see. So, in short, we're going to talk about the family perception data that we have gained from our very first step on a 1,000-mile journey in terms of what this data can look like. And it does feel like we took one step, just to be honest, because we put a lot of energy into it. And I think you'll see that the results have been modest and something that we can use, but we do have a lot of goals about how to make sure we're going to get the most out of this process going forward. So what are we going to talk about? The areas that are covered on the Panorama Family Schools Relationship Survey and how we administered it this fall. We'll look at the findings from a very surface level. And part of that is because of the way we got responses back. It's very interesting how the survey is put together, and some of the things that we added to it really did shed some light. And we'll talk about some next steps. So there are 9 major areas covered in the survey. And one of them is one that we added on our own initiative, and really want to commend our team. This is a full team project. The fact that I'm standing up here, really, please understand, this represents the entire leadership of our schools and the district, because it has been a fully collaborative process from top to bottom. So the first set of questions is, and in the parentheses, you'll see the number of questions that comprise each subject, each section of the survey. In academic needs, are you aware of these resources? I think the phrase academic needs might be a slight misnomer, but it's really, are you aware of certain things that will open the door to the school? Barriers to engagement is the largest subsection of this survey, which I think is illuminating for us and may help to inform our discussion. How big of a problem is this or that factor in your in engaging with schools? Family engagement, how involved have you at the family level been? Family support, how often do you do these things at home, away from school? What kinds of things are you able to provide on your own strength? School climate, what does the school do day to day to help children learn? School fit, how does that apply to your own unique situation? School safety, we've put in italics because these are questions that we added. We have strategic plan goals in other parts of our strategic plan that refer directly to a feeling of safety and the reality of safety at school. So we wanted to ask some questions related to that. One of the sections is called Roles and Responsibilities, and it's not a nationally normed section. All these other sections that we didn't create are normed against the national pool of respondents. Who do you think is primarily responsible for this or that aspect of the schooling experience? Again, it sheds some light on some things, and I think we'll learn just a little bit from the very quick read of the data from tonight. And then some background questions in terms of what families prefer. How do they prefer to communicate with schools? What works best for them? And just some demographic questions. So here's how we administered the survey. And again, to Dr. Dreyer's credit, she really engineered this process. She and I were able to collaborate, and it involved a lot of people. We focused on school level communication and district level communication to make sure that families got no fewer than 6 notifications, as long as their email is current, which we know it is because everyone has to have an email address to register their students. So there's a whole process to ensure that on some level, we should be able to communicate with families. So October 19th was the very first notification. October 31st was a reminder email. And again, the link went out with a tracking link. So Dr. Dreyer and I were very excited. I remember the first day it went out, we were already seeing like click, click, click. We knew exactly who was clicking through the survey. And one thing we learned right away, for every 2 clicks on the survey, we would get 1 completed. Not a bad sign. 50% completion rate was worth noting, but that was also 50%. Out of every 2 clicks, 1 wasn't going to be a finished survey. November 2nd, we put a notice in the 5th OCS Connections newsletter, and that was exciting because we're like, wow, we're really kind of supporting. We're pinging off the different resources that we have. And then November 4th was the deadline, so we sent 1 final reminder that day. And each of these proved to be fruitful, as well as messages coming out from the schools. We saw a bump in responses every time that we put something out. So people were responsive. And again, it went out in English and Spanish every time. The survey was available in English and Spanish. And the fact that that's how it went out and that's how it was delivered should tell us something, even when we look at the actual rate of response that we got back, right? This is something very important for us to reflect on. So what did we learn from the responses? First of all, across schools and grade levels, we had an even distribution. Roughly even, it's almost flat. In terms of the familial relationship, mothers responded 80% of the time to the survey. Fathers and grandparents comprised the other 20%. As far as home language, this was the first really difficult pill to swallow, just to be honest. That 93% of respondents spoke English at home and 4% spoke Spanish, because we know that that does not clearly match. That's not a representative sample of our district. So we understood at this point, we're going to use this data for what we can, but it's not everything that we wanted. And that's just, we're going to put that on the table. In terms of race and ethnicity, 70% of respondents are white. 50% of our district at this point is white, 50% of our district is non-white. So again, not a representative sample, but still useful data for what we can use it for. Educational attainment, college or graduate school. I haven't looked at the Commerce data. I don't think 70% of the county is college or graduate school completion. But again, it's telling us that the method of the survey may have conditioned the results, and we'll use that to learn the same as we all learn all the time. Communication preference, email, 78% of the time. It's interesting to note that more people would prefer to get text messages than phone calls. We'll be sharing that information with anybody who wants to know, including our principals. So what does the survey look like when you're reading the results? Here's what one section of the survey might look like. These are the academic needs. And again, I'm showing you this graphic so that you can kind of see, and again, you have the whole complete file in your abstract. I hope you've had time to peruse those results and get something from it. These 2 questions are just interesting as standalones. As a parent, do you know what mental health and wellness resources or counseling services are available at my child's school? Now, bear in mind what we said about the response rate, the response pool, who was responding to this survey. 3 out of 5 people who responded to this survey from that pool said, yes, they know what mental health resources are available at school. I'm just going to leave that without comment, right? 40% are not fully aware. That puts a lot of communication. I said I was going to go without comment, so I will keep moving on, right? You all can think about some of the ramifications of that. So what else do we see? The barriers to engagement was the biggest section, 13 questions. We're just going to tackle a couple of them here. Is childcare needs one of the reasons that you can't engage with school? That green bar and the highly favorable results tells us no, that's not one of the barriers. What about transportation-related challenges? Not for this population. Lots of green. Concerns about getting to school safely? More and more green. But a busy schedule. The higher the education, the higher the income, the higher the attainment, the more white, the more challenging it was. And you can see that if you drill down, which we can do, we can disaggregate this data and look to see how response rates change by different demographic factors. The more those identify you, the busier your schedule is and the less you're engaging with school because of your busy schedule. Just an interesting finding from the survey. More barriers to engagement. Do school staff seem too busy? Thank goodness that's not the same factor as the busy schedule of families. But being unsure about communicating with the school, again, even better. There's a good sign that families know how to communicate with the school if they're also really good at answering our survey. It's good information for us to know. The last barrier to engagement I want to look at is this one. Do you worry that adults at the school will treat your child differently if you raise a concern? 25% of families said, yeah, pretty much, in this population. Again, I keep that as a caveat. I wonder how surprising it is to know that 5% of families meet in person with teachers monthly or more at the school. Maybe that's the right number, but it just seems like a very small number. So again, some of these findings are just interesting on the surface. But the fact that when you put everyone from every few months and more often, that you're still looking at 20% of respondents, very interesting. These next four, these two slides on family engagement, it's just very interesting when you note that the one thing that gets more people involved at the school level, aside from just visiting, is fundraising efforts. It's easier to get someone involved in fundraising efforts at a child's school than to talk to the teachers. Okay. Family support is a very interesting section, and these two questions together make a great pairing. How often do you talk with your child about what their class is learning? 83% said pretty often. To what extent do you know how your child is doing socially? Social emotional well-being of your child, 61%. And again, that bell curve clearly has shifted much further down. So the roles and responsibilities section, as we noted, is not scored, but these are just some things for us to look at. When talking about good communication between home and school, the population tilts towards schools. When looking at how children are supported, it tilts towards parents. I imagine schools try to take both of these very seriously and think of them as their primary challenge. The enjoyment of school, question number 1, versus the motivation of school, question number 2. Again, just interesting findings that I hope our educators and leaders are going to find interesting as they drill down to it at the school level, which we will talk about. These data have ramifications for a long-term game, not only at the district level, but at the school level. The $64,000 question, do administrators create a school environment that helps children learn, children like yours learn? Again, a bell curve. 3 out of 5 said yes. Okay, that's a number that I think we would want to see very, very high. How comfortable is your child in asking for help from school adults? Half of our respondents. In what you might consider to be a skewed pool. Okay. And again, school safety, these questions are the kinds of things that would just seem like low-hanging fruit. How often do you worry about violence at your child's school? That's a bell curve I don't think we want to see a bell curve there. We want a sense of safety and non-worrying about violence to be the kind of thing that would typify our schools. And if a student is bullied, how difficult is it to get help from an adult? 7 out of 10 said it wouldn't be that difficult. Something for us to bear in mind. I'm going to skip to this last one because I think this is, again, in terms of communication challenges, this is one of the things that just stands out. If you've gotten our newsletter, if you've received emails, if you get notifications from virtually any principal about what's been going on at your school, you're going to hear, and please remember, use the Say Something app. We're ready to hear from you, or call us at the school, or call anyone. So in the most favorable respondent pool we could possibly find for knowledge and communicating with us by email, 2/3 of them are aware of how they can report something, and more than 1/3 still have questions. So what did we learn from the survey? First of all, we did take one step in a 1,000-mile journey. We've established some baseline data for the third goal in outcome goal 4, which we're hoping opens doors. Schools are going to unpack this data over the next few months to align with their own school improvement processes and align it with NC STAR components. We're going to talk about expanding access. We're going to talk about different ways to get this survey instrument in the hands of our families. We learned a lot about how we can communicate with every family, learning about what's getting through, what's not getting through. We still have to ask why. And that means we're going to be leveraging our family liaisons and community partnerships and taking advantage of opportunities to enhance the family engagement and family support components from this survey. And so before I talk about a very quick update of the liaisons, to give you some halftime entertainment for those of you watching at home, are there any questions on the survey itself? And I'm very grateful that Dr. Dreyer, again, who is really the chief engineer of this process, is here with me tonight in case you have questions about that. Yes, ma'am.
I have a bunch of questions, but
sure.
One of the things that, and I don't know if I ever sent it to you, Kevin, I probably should. Early on in my tenure, the Spanish community leaders sent us an email and said, will you please stop sending us emails? If you want to reach us, you'll need to text to us, because that's it. So the idea that and I'll send it to you, and they also asked us to please communicate in language that they understand. I read some of these questions and I think about someone who might not have a high school degree, and what are we trying to, so my basic question is, and one other basic, we have social workers and counselors in every school. We have Power School, we have educator handbooks, we have all this stuff. What are we trying to find out from these surveys that our schools don't already know? How's that for a loaded question?
Good question. I don't know if you're looking for Kevin to answer, but you'll get
I'll take anyone.
You'll get his other bald-headed brother. I think what we're looking for in this is not necessarily related towards discipline, but the whole idea about these surveys are how is the perception and how are we engaging in schools. So especially thinking about our family Panorama survey, it is engaging, thinking about how our families feel comfortable coming into schools, how is their engagement in schools, are they aware of all the things that we have? That's not anything that we can see in Power Schools, Educator's Handbook. That's nothing that, other than me talking to every parent that comes in as a counselor, a social worker, a teacher, or admin, can find out. This gives us one fell swoop. Now, what we would love to say is that we can take all this information and say, you know what? This is how we're going to fix some of the inequities that we see within our district. We know that's not going to happen, especially when we look at who has filled out the survey. So what I appreciate is the conversation we've had with principals, how they can take this information, use it as part of their NC STAR with Ms. Carr at their work as to do with family engagement, to look at how we can enhance the learning or what's happening with our families within the school. This is just a tool to kind of help start that conversation. It is not the end all be all. Same thing with our students. When we think about, and Dr. Dreyer will so eloquently go over our student stuff, but our student panorama data will just simply talk about how students feel involved in school. It does not indicate the disciplinary or the attendance. Matter of fact, I can tell you from being a principal, and I'm sure Ms. Purcell will echo the sentiment, the kids who have the most disciplinary actions are not the ones missing school. They show up just about every day. So the issue is not necessarily their perception of coming into school. What I often question is what is causing this interaction? I have been known to say that discipline is a symptom of a sickness. It is not the disease. And so when thinking about the survey helps give us some kind of symptoms that the students may be experiencing. We can kind of change and shift, but it does not give us that information. So I think what we're trying to really gather is, how do students feel comfortable in school? What are some tweaks that we can make to enhance their experience? And as we're doing that, we're hoping that it can help lead us to more conversations around what are some of these disciplinary issues you're having, or why are we not showing up every day? What are we missing? Because now we're building relationship. So looking to open door to build relationship to get to some of those deeper problems. Does that make sense?
Well, kind of. If I could follow up, just have, so if we have, the family liaisons, fantastic work, and if they have an event around summer programs, if they have an event around tutoring, right? Because that's what the parents, they may not ask enter a 20-question survey, but they can see their student's report card and say, my kid's behind, how do I get help for them?
Sure.
And those are the kinds of things that, I hear from this community that they want help with, and that's when they want to engage with their schools. And honestly, I think the schools have done a pretty fantastic, with your help, done a fantastic job responding to that. So how do we, I'll use your language, meet them where they are? How's that?
She tapped me, let me move.
So I think what's important to remember is what we're collecting with this particular survey is a perception. So it's not particularly that answer, but it's how do we get to the place where we can have the communication? You're telling us this, and it's an anonymous survey. I don't know if Ms. Hauser responded to that, but we're getting an general idea, right, of what the perception of parents in our community are feeling about communication and being engaged and all of that. So we use that to then ask some other questions. How can we communicate with you? What do you feel personally about what's going on and what's happening? How can we meet your needs? Because what we know is your needs are going to be different from her needs, are going to be different from his needs. So we're used to using this as an umbrella to find out general information of some gaps that we need to fill in an effort to then drill down and find out how we can meet needs individually.
And I think it's important to, in that regard, the three of us represent the three people who you might have seen a year ago, right? Same roles, different people. That flamboyant fellowship and going after those conversations and being able to do the one-on-one small group in the space, making people feel like they can be heard because you stay with them while they're saying something that you might otherwise want to walk away from. Those are the kinds of conversations we're talking about nurturing. But until people know that we, A, are seeking their input, B, are going to use their input to do something that makes a positive change so that change is felt culture-wide. I'm gonna have to thank Ms. Bryant. It's gonna go on my business card. Because those are the kinds of things that we're talking about, but we then have to do little things consistently over and over again, repetitively, until we get it right and until people feel it, feel it right. I don't know how else we can describe it. That's what this is all about, and we have to take one step at a time. So this was, by definition, that first step. With no baseline data for our strategic plan, we literally didn't even know what to put on the brochure, what to put on the slide, and we at least have, we feel very fortunate to have that first step behind us, knowing that we have many, many more steps to go.
I think even down to your point about communication, knowing that families prefer a text that we got from this survey over an email, that's valid. So then when the schools get all this information back and they can say, and I know as a principal, parents will say, well, I don't hear from you. And I'm like, what do you mean? I do a Connect Day call every Sunday. I send an email every week. And then I have to ask, is my modality of communication actually effective for you? If that answer is no, then they're right. They are not hearing from me. So if we take this data, all principals have it. Dr. Dre did a great job at our last leadership meeting, walking them through how to break this data down. They can start having shifts and changes in their communications, which may be, and my population wants text messaging. I can stop all the emails and I need to go to text messaging, or I need to add that into my sense of modality, which then I'm still giving the same information I would have given earlier, but now it's actually reaching you. So the tutoring programs that we do have that you may not have been aware of, now you're able to receive. And so I think it's just taking this information and plugging it in where we have some of those holes.
And the modality that we know our Hispanic and Latino families use is the one that our family liaisons, not to steal my own thunder, but for about 5 to 7 minutes, we're going to talk about what the liaisons do that directly reflects on what we just talked about, right? The WhatsApp group, the WhatsApp groups that are used by the liaisons make many of these things happen. And so that's one of the things that we'll have to leverage going forward.
Karen?
Thank you for this presentation, and am I on? I know my mic was off for a minute. There we go. Thank you for this presentation, and I agree that it's a really good baseline to ask a lot of good questions. And as a parent, I received and completed and clicked on it several times before I actually did it as well, but was in the demographic of respondents, predominant respondents. And I'm just wondering if one of the adaptations can be something like, I know we've come a long way in terms of language accessibility. I think we possibly still are working on literacy accessibility.
We have a lot of questions about what we can do differently.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering if you can break it into sections and do it through text. So, you might get more respondents because it's long. We're trying to get a lot of information, and it's lengthy. We're heady people, and it exhausts people when we are, and I'm that way too.
Where we do it, who helps us do it, when we do it, how many times we do it, in what setting we do it, all these things matter. And we definitely learned that from this administration of the survey.
So to answer the question, yeah, that's something we're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
How to shorten this thing up.
Sarah?
Thank you. And I appreciate just the proactive call out about the survey respondents and the way that you've sort of framed and discussed this. One thought I had while we were talking about the, busyness of schedule piece is just that may be a factor for many of the respondents who are, not in the majority demographic of this, who did not respond to the survey because they are very busy. So I think that is probably a universal challenge. I guess I would just urge us to talk to, involve families in getting answers to your questions, in figuring this out, right? And in figuring out, wherever there are gaps in this, I was like, gosh, I wish there was an open response question on here where you could ask some free.
Well, and there you go. So even, again, I mentioned that Flamboyant was something that you all had heard about, presented to the board many, many times. The fact that they are not opening a new cohort and that the work there was disrupted, the work on the structural work may have been disrupted, but not our systemic work here. And so there are all the things that we learned. We still have the documentation, we still have the practices, we still have the motivation and the mindset. So those things can happen. There's no reason why they won't. And that's one of the things I said in the presentation. Complementary ways of getting at the data will help us assure that we're getting the right data from the right people to do the right things.
I just to underscore my point, I think that if you asked parents at a school, how can we improve these principal emails or whatever it is, the very concrete, help us figure out how to get through.
Or at a church or at a community center or at many other places.
Right. I mean, beyond the text messaging thing, just the other aspects of this that are challenging.
Yes. We appreciate that.
If I could add, and I think your family liaisons might be a great vehicle, Gateway Village would be another, but to go to those families and say, what questions do you need to be asked, right? Because we're asking the questions that are of interest to us, but what do they need from their school that they're not getting? How comfortable are they? What do they need? But is it possible that we should be doing some interviews before we do surveys?
So
And I think, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
I think that's the next step. So now we've done this legwork, we've created a baseline, which is what we've been looking for. We're looking at this baseline to say, where are some of the gaps that we're seeing? Then we can have those more personal and smaller, intimate conversations to ask questions, to get direct responses from those individuals to help meet those needs.
That would be helpful.
And I need to clear the floor, but I'm going to take 2 minutes. I'm going to take 2 more minutes and then clear the floor, because tonight, one of the reasons Sandra Blefko is not here, which again it's helping us ease the presentation, because we'll bring her back to talk more about what the liaisons and family outreach do. She's at Eflin Cheeks Global Elementary School, where tonight we've relaunched adult ESL classes, and the cafeteria is filled with 55 adults who came out. That's a monumental success for this program, which dwarfs any effort that's been taking place before. Choice School event tomorrow night, focused on any family who wants to learn more about the choice programs, family liaisons. The next night, communication tools. These are online meetings that are being well attended. And Sandra and her team have been tracking every interaction, tracking attendance at events, because we believe that we can quantify the progress of families by doing the right things that they need and making sure that they can show up. Not that they do show up, that they can show up, because they will show up. So I definitely want to clear the floor. I think we've learned a lot. We have so much more to learn based on what we learned, and that's really the best possible situation for us. I'm really grateful that Lee and Jessica have been doing so many wonderful things with this, and hopefully the student data will open up some more vistas for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate the information.
Thank you. Good evening. I will, for sake of time, will not be before you long, but do want to share information about and updates with our student Panorama surveys. So what we will do today is just take a look at very surface highlights of the student competency measures, highlight some positives and some areas of concern. missing a slide, but that's okay. So we're taking a look at the strategic plan, and we are still in goal 4, but actually looking at, while the family survey was looking at the third key performance indicator, we're actually looking at the first 2, which are making sure that our students are feeling engaged and supported in school, which comes from the results of the Panorama survey. Also, what you'll see on the updated deck is some demographic information. And the survey is split between grades 3 and 5 and 6 through 12. And it shows student grade level, student race, and student gender, and how they responded and the percentages that they responded. So what you'll see here is the student SEL competency measures for grades 3 through 5. And this is in the same format that it was presented in August for the winter 2022 survey. What we're looking at today is the fall 2022 survey. These are the 5 topics that were given and administered in this survey: emotional regulation, positive feelings, self-management, social awareness, and supportive relationships. In the center column, you'll see that these are the results of students that responded favorably to those answers. What is highlighted is emotional regulation with a 49%. I like to look over 50. Over 50 is positive. Under 50 is an area of concern. And so this area had questions that students responded to that were less than favorable. Just to give some highlights of some positive results for those areas. I won't read all of them, but you'll see the bottom 3 have been highlighted as high areas. Do you have a teacher or another adult at school that you can count on to help you no matter what? 88% of our elementary students answered favorably to that. Do you have a family member or adult outside of school that you can count on to help? And that's emotionally, that's socially, that's academically. 91% of our elementary students reported that they have a family member or an adult outside of school that they can count on. And then, do you have a friend from school who you can count on to help? 88% of our students responded favorably to that. And so this is telling us that our students believe that they have what I like to call a village. They have an adult at school that they trust, they have an adult at home that they trust, and they have friends that they can count on when they have needs. Some areas of concern, as highlighted in red: how often are you able to pull yourself out of a bad mood? So if you are feeling blue, can you pull yourself out of that easily? Only 46% of our students answered favorably to that. When everybody around you gets angry, how relaxed can you stay? So if my friend is having a bad time and she's angry and she's about to do something and react to something, am I going to react with her, or I'm going to try to calm her down and pull her down with me? 43% responded favorably to that question. And then at the bottom, you'll see during the past 30 days, how clearly were you able to describe your feelings? Only 49% of our elementary students answered favorably to that question. Now we move on to the SEL student competency measures for students in grades 6 through 12. Our secondary students had 11 topics to answer questions, and you'll see those listed on the far left. There were 3 areas of concern that had less than 50% favorable rate. That was diversity and inclusion, emotion regulation, and social perspective taking. Some highlights of positive results for our secondary students. My school is welcoming, understanding, and kind towards parents and caregivers. We see 89% was favorable in that area. My school has a variety of after-school activities that students are able to be a part of regardless of money and transportation and those barriers, 80% favorable. And do you have a friend from school that you can be completely yourself around? 91% of our students answered favorably to that. Some areas of concern. I hear hurtful comments about students based on race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, disabilities from adults in my school. 17% answered in that area. During the past week, how often did you feel safe? Only 31% of our secondary students answered favorably to feeling safe at school. During the past 30 days, how clearly were you able to describe your feelings? Only 33% of our secondary students answered favorably to that area. So looking again, this was very quick and a very highlighted area. What are some next steps? This survey that I just gave highlighted results were from the fall of 2022. In my last presentation to you all in August, it was requested that we administer this survey to our students 3 times this year. So our middle of year survey window will begin on January 16th and end on February 10th, where we'll be able to get some comparison information between beginning of the year and middle of the year, so we can begin to find some trends. We're going to continue to work with schools to disaggregate data to assist with their school improvement plans and to assess needs for our students. Again, we drill down from district-wide to see what those gaps are, to school. We can go to classroom and even look at individual students to see what needs they have so that they can receive services that are needed for them at school. And then cross-referencing Panorama survey data with school discipline data, again, in an effort, as Mr. Williams put, that we want to identify what those symptoms are so that we can start identifying and helping those symptoms to improve. And then data discipline will improve along with as we're identifying those symptoms. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Participation in this, what percentage of students participated and were they representative?
So for our grades 3 through 5, we had 1,271 responses.
Okay.
And for our grades 6 through 12, we had, get cut off.
2,947.
Thank you.
And
there were close to 6,000 released because it's only grades 3 through 12.
Got it.
The number escapes me, but it's about 5,700 that are actually released to our students.
And how about demographics?
We actually have that slide. They're pulling
Yes.
it out. It got missed in our presentation.
I can't see it. Oh, okay.
Can I ask you a question right quick?
You can.
Do the students have to get permission from their parents to take this survey?
Yes, ma'am. There is prior to the survey going out, we do send a letter or a reminder to the parents that the survey is coming, and that gives them an opportunity to opt out. And so when we administered in the fall, we did have some students that opted out with the understanding that they opt out for the entire year. So they will not take the survey. And then when we send the information out again, they will, if there are those that did not opt out that choose to, they have that option.
Okay, just curious about that.
Yeah.
Can I? Okay. Thank you very much for this information. I noticed, like in the elementary school questions, a lot of those questions, pulling yourself out of a bad mood, how relaxed can you stay, they seemed a lot about the self-management row. And I saw that in the benchmark, it says that 20th to 39th percentile. Does that mean, I know Panorama's given in thousands of school districts. Does that mean our schools are at the 20th to 39th percentile, our 3rd through 6th graders? That's the lower end. Like 50th
Right.
percentile would be like, we're the national average. And that seems to suggest that our upper elementary students have a harder time with self-management than nationally. So are you also, I know you were like looking at the like below 50% kind of as a threshold, but are you also looking at those national comparisons to say like, maybe 80% of kids have an adult they can go to in the school, but actually like that's not very good. Like, we actually want it to be 95% of elementary
Right,
school.
right.
You know what
And
I mean? Like,
the platform does, when it gives the benchmarks for national percentiles, it does give indicators. So our results, when it's talking about giving favorable results, it's a stoplight, red, yellow, green. And so the benchmarks do give that as well, to give you an idea of where you are, and if you need to improve. And also what will happen when we take the mid-year survey, we'll be able to see in each area if there were increases or decreases in points.
so we can compare ourselves to ourselves, but we can
Yes.
also compare ourselves to like the national average, let's
Yes,
say.
we have the ability to do district to district, so a comparison to ourselves, school to school. We have the nationwide, and that can even be broken down to urban, suburban, rural school districts, those with high numbers of, there are ranges in those with free and reduced lunch. So there are different ways that we can kind of choose and break down to see how we compare.
So we could pick like a similar demographic
Yes.
and compare ourselves to that.
Yes.
This is reassuring. Thank you for sharing this. You said in your presentation that you would be cross-referencing this to the discipline data in the schools. And that presumes you have this broken down by school. And
Yes.
will you be reporting that back to us? Because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's where, right, that's what we're trying to understand. What are the obstacles? Are there patterns that are affecting behavior, right?
Yeah, so as we're starting that conversation now, right, so we're taking this information, I've pulled all the discipline data, broken it down by schools, by demographic, we're doing the same thing here. We'll be able to kind of have some more understanding once we get the mid-year information as well, to kind of have a better scope. Part of what we're also working on is understanding the difference with those minor infractions, with those office referrals, because a lot of those things that are being put in are minors, just kind of those conversations, so it's trying to disaggregate that down one more extensive lens. But we can, I think there's conversations we're having with the schools around that, to be as granular and make it correct as possible. Would be like if we take a kid, I'll pick on Andre for a minute, Andre is doing great in school, no issues, we look at his perception data, it's showing that kind of piece, right, no discipline. We take somebody like Dr. Felder, I mean, man, just tearing the place up, having a hard time there. And, then we look at that perception data, it's like, I can't stand anybody here, right? Then there may be some correlation there. So we're looking at, some of it is also looking at our outliers that have had multiple encounters, and then trying to then pull that back to be looking at their perception data to see if there's some cross-reference. Because right now, we're kind of just making that, we're looking at all possible data areas to see how we can help support that. It's not a direct trend.
Thank you.
So it's just being a data junkie, playing with it.
Lots of data.
Oh, yeah.
It's very heavy, yes.
If you want more, we got you. We'll give you more. Just come hang out with us.
It's very heavy.
You never know.
Just a quick comment that I think this was a really great presentation of information. So thank you for sharing all this information.
Thank you.
Sorry, you have one more. I have one more, which is, I know the ideal, right, is that we're getting this data, looking at it at the district level, the schools are looking at it at the school level, et cetera. Like, where are we between sort of the ideal implementation and where schools really are in terms of their facility with this and like their comfort with it and their use of it?
So it's interesting because actually today we had a conversation, and Dr. Felder, we're doing data conversations. So as we're doing the tours, talking about data, academic, and also sort of the social, emotional, and behavioral data, we're having these conversations. So we sat within the school today, and I got to shout out Principal Sauls. As we were discussing, I said, let's talk about your discipline for a minute. She was able to name for me the student, off the jump, the students who had the encounters, what they were around, the teachers she knew it verbatim. Then she could even take that piece of information, translate it to the student's performance, and tell me where their student was going to end up sort of performing on the MOY. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about, right? That cross intersection, not just looking at discipline as an issue, but finding also the academic pieces. I think our schools are there, but I will say is, and I will take full responsibility, I have not had those conversations with them as of yet. And so now that we're having these data meetings, I am upping that, having more of those conversations, and also in an equitable manner, as we use also in our office, the 27 equitable checklist, looking at how we can make our classrooms more equitable and more culturally relevant, and looking at this data, right? Then looking at our discipline, and then looking at our predictors for EBOS. I think we're going to be there. And I'll say, like, again, our schools are having those conversations. On me, I have not been leading those conversations or engaging them in that the first part of this year, but I guarantee you that has started to shift. As you can tell the excitement, I love data.
I can hear it.
It's my thing.
And we have been taking opportunities specifically with Panorama to go over with principals how to navigate and be able to really break down and look at the data from whole school to individual students.
Very granular.
Are they receptive? I mean, there's a, intuitively, and I could be completely wrong on this, that I would think that, that's what I'd expect, what you'd expressed from Ms. Sauls, that the principals and the social workers, the counselors, they know exactly what's going on in the schools, and they know which kids are answering which way. So how is this helping them?
So I think it helps us to have the conversation so that we can provide support, right? So it's one thing to know how the kids are answering. It's one thing to know, yeah, this kid is having some issues and struggles. What it does for us is say, okay, we're seeing that too. What are the supports that you need? As we think about Rethink Ed and we think about what that's bringing into kind of providing that support, it gives us an opportunity to maybe tweak and change the curriculum that we're giving there so they can provide that in. So it gives us framework for conversation. I will say some schools may know, but what we're doing with it after that, right, is the next part. Like, I know Lee is tearing the classroom up, but why? And if we drill down to it, we want to make it a discipline thing, but really it's a simple fact of we're not engaging Lee as an active learner. Lee is not seeing himself in the curriculum, and Lee has said that in the survey through these questions. So then let's help Lee see himself as a learner. Let's get with our C&I department to pull more books that are culturally relevant to then maybe that changes Lee's perspective and purview of himself, and his behavior in the classroom shifts.
If I could just add on to that, so these data are very helpful in our work, MTSS work, that allows us to look at the whole child. And so I think the example that Mr. Williams just gave is a perfect example of trying to pinpoint what all is going on with a child and not just focusing on one area. We have a number of data points that we can look at to provide information. So it's very, very helpful in that way.
Any further questions? Thank you all. This has been most informative.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Great job. Thank you.
Do you want to do the contract?
We have that left to do, I think, and that's all we have left to do. And that is the Panorama Contract.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for the information on how it's being used. I will, obviously you get the biases that you're working the biases out of the family stuff, so that's great. And you're working with the schools on it, which is fantastic. I really appreciate all that. So, in that context, I would like to move that we approve the contract for for Panorama.
Okay. We have a motion. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Wait a minute.
Approved?
He voted.
We didn't count him.
Oh, I thought that was Bill.
Mr. Atherton?
Yeah.
Are you a part of this vote?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
All right, thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to more data and more data. Orange County is data rich, you know that,
We will keep bringing it.
and you will keep bringing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any further comments? Anything this afternoon, not tonight, that we need, or do we?
Just as a reminder, we do need the second closed session, which is on the agenda. So all we need is a motion to return to closed session for the reasons previously stated.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. This meeting is officially moved into closed session. So we will change spots once again.